All right, welcome to tonight's show. Happy Valentine's Day. I want to jump into just looking at some charts here of how could strategy, aka MicroStrategy, get to over 400. How does it break to high 400s, and how does it go into 570, 576 per se? Okay, so I'm going to look at some charts here, and we're going to do it based on the NAV premium, which you all know it's been trading below 2 recently. And last year it was trading above 2 and even above 3. So we're going to look at some different scenarios here and then relate that to Bitcoin as well. So let's take a quick look and look at the charts. So again, this is not financial advice. It's for educational, informational purposes only. Make your own decisions, not financial, legal, or investment advice. So do your own research on this stuff and make your own decisions. But I'm going to share with you how I'm looking at this right now. Okay. So we're looking, I'm going to show you a chart here that shows you a graph. Okay. And based on this graph, you can see, first, let's look at the assets of MicroStrategy here. So when you're looking at this chart here, clearly top right here, we have a 337 price point today that MicroStrategy closed at. All right. I bought up a whole bunch at 337. I was intending to buy in earlier yesterday. I bought in at 321, 324, 326. Today I got to my desk late. It shot up, but I wanted to get my positions in because who knows? We could open up next week and go much higher, or we could go lower. But I wanted to establish a large position today in MicroStrategy, which I did. So I bought in around this price point today, and we're seeing that the outstanding the basic shares outstanding for MicroStrategy are 258,000 shares outstanding. If you look here on its rankings in terms of the U.S. market cap ranking, it's 117 out of 499 companies. On the S&P 500 index, it's 118 out of 500 companies. And on the NASDAQ right here, you'll see that MicroStrategy is number 46 out of 100 companies. So it's obviously in the top here. Its daily trading volume is number 11 out of 499. But the bigger part of the story is, let's take a look at what the price could get to. If you look at the NAV premium down here, okay, lower left here, it's about 1.866. Maybe I can zoom in for you to see the screen a little bit better. But I'm down at the bottom here. So if you look what I'm highlighting down here, the NAV premium, about 1.866. So we'll actually look at it on a graph per se of what it is. And if you look at their total convertible debt down here with MicroStrategy, lower right, it's $7.2 billion of convertible debt. Okay. And the total cost basis for MicroStrategy in terms of their Bitcoin is $31 billion. And their Bitcoin balance up here, if you look, is 478,740 Bitcoin. And their total Bitcoin holdings is 46 billion. All right. So when you look at their total Bitcoin holdings, MicroStrategy is obviously trading at a premium to, their Bitcoin holdings. So we're going to look at what that premium is and what that premium could be, because that premium is going to be a good indicator of what the price could potentially go to as it lines up with Bitcoin. All right. And you see the Bitcoin price up here today is 97,592. So we want to know all these things as we're looking at, what could MicroStrategy's price go to. And obviously there's some good news coming out for Bitcoin. I mean, one of my buddies sent this to me today that, Abu Dhabi has a sovereign wealth fund that just unveiled a $436 million Bitcoin ETF holding. GameStop announced that they're putting a large portion of their, some of their reserves into Bitcoin as well. So there's more and more news coming, and we know that we've had negative days of the ETFs the last three days or so, and this was a positive day of money flowing into the ETFs versus pouring out of the ETFs. But overall, if you look at just the basic price prediction that I'm looking at here, here's how I would take a look at the chart here. Okay, so let's switch over to a different chart here, and let's take a look at the actual graph. And this will give you a good indicator here when you look at this graph. Okay, so if you follow along here with where you look at this, and this is assuming if you, when you see the NAV premium here, this is the current NAV premium that it's at today at 1.87x NAV premium. So when you see this line that I'm going along here, this is 1.876. And if you look at about today's close was approximately this. So where my cursor is right now, you look at the Bitcoin price 97,490, you look at the MicroStrategy price 337, and you see a 1.87x NAV premium. So we know that MicroStrategy is trading at a premium, and it's trading at a premium to their Bitcoin holdings. And so when you look at this, it's at a 1.87x. Now throughout 2024, it was over 2x. So I'm assuming that in 2024, we're going to get back to over a 2x in the NAV premium. Particularly, I think if he starts tapping the convertible notes, and when you look at the convertible notes that are left for Saylor to tap in 2025, there's like $18 billion worth of convertible notes, right? So if the NAV premium stays at 1.876, you can just kind of trace this along and just look as I'm following along this line as the Bitcoin price goes up and up and up and up. Here, let's say Bitcoin gets to 119, 120 here, right? If you see this here, Bitcoin hits 119,000. With the current NAV premium, MicroStrategy would be at a $412 stock price. Okay, that's what the current NAV premium. All right, now if you want to look at, and you could look at different price points here, like MicroStrategy at 114, Bitcoin at $114,394 MicroStrategy price. If Bitcoin gets back to its all-time high, which I believe it will, around 110, maybe a little bit less than that, you can see that MicroStrategy would hit 377. Okay, so we're not far away from a $400 MicroStrategy at the current NAV premium. Bitcoin needs to hit about 115 to hit about a $400 MicroStrategy. However, if the NAV premium goes up to what more it's recently been, which is like in 2024 over 2, and if the NAV premium stays at 2.14, you could have about a $457 MicroStrategy price point. Okay. So it shows you that the NAV premium makes a big difference, because at a 2.12 NAV premium, MicroStrategy price could be around $457. All right. And then if you want to go higher and you want to look at the NAV premium at 2.57, because there were times last year that it was at 2.5. There were times last year that it was 3. I mean, you could see MicroStrategy, if Bitcoin goes to 115 and MicroStrategy's NAV premium's 2.57, you have a $544 Bitcoin. All right. You can even see this and trace this further up. Look at the NAV premium goes to 2.65 and Bitcoin hits 120. You have a $584 MicroStrategy. So it gives you a real idea of what is the potential based on the NAV premium. And we want Saylor to keep acquiring Bitcoin. We want him to tap the converts this year to acquire Bitcoin, because the converts don't actually dilute the shares. So whatever shares are outstanding in the marketplace right now, he taps the convert, he adds more Bitcoin to the balance sheet. And so let's say the amount of, I want to make sure I can see you on the screen here. So let's say the amount of shares that MicroStrategy has is X, right? And their Bitcoin holdings is this, right? And then all of a sudden he taps the converts and the Bitcoin holdings go up. Now you have more Bitcoin per share still, right? Because he's not tapping the ATM to increase the shares, to increase the Bitcoin holdings. So what you're getting here is like, okay, the shares are stay at this, let's say, and there's no more shares issued right now. And he taps the converts and the Bitcoin holdings go up. So that means MicroStrategy is going to have more Bitcoin on the balance sheet. If the Bitcoin price goes up, that means the premium, we could get a higher premium on MicroStrategy, and we could see a NAV premium being over 2, 2.2, 2.4, what have you, right? So this is a good, this chart gives a good example of, hopefully when I was showing this, it gives a good example. You can see the black box on the screen here, right, as I'm showing it. So if you look at the NAV premium here, I want to make sure you guys can see it. So, because the black box is the key indicator. If you can see it, just let me know in the chat box. I love it. 1K MicroStrategy March. Love it. From Kim in there. So if you look at this chart that I'm looking at, this is the one I was showing. So yeah, so you're looking like these are the potentials. So the current NAV is 1.87, and so we get to Bitcoin hits 120, we get to a $412 MicroStrategy. So MicroStrategy is what, 337 to close that today. So that would only be what's that, 25%? Yeah, around 20%. That's like a 20% bump, 25% bump. So there's a 25% increase in MicroStrategy price point in terms of the stock going up. So let's say if Bitcoin goes to 119 at the current NAV premium, we could see about 412, right? NAV premium goes up 2.1, 463, and NAV premium around 2.65. We could see a MicroStrategy price point of $584 if Bitcoin hits 120. Okay, so it's super interesting to look at this and see what the potential is. I mean, you could raise the price points even further out here, and we can go further out, and we can look at if Bitcoin goes to, that's Bitcoin at 200. So if Bitcoin hits 200 and the NAV premium is 187, that would be a lower MicroStrategy price. So that's assuming it doesn't change. I'm not going to do that because I'm going to mess up the example. All right, so now let's take a look at let's just take a look at MicroStrategy's performance overall. All right, so if we look at the performance, I'll share the screen here in a second, and let's look at its performance over the last year compared to the rest of let's see if I scroll down here. So if we go down here, we can take a look at and compare it to other stocks in the marketplace here, right? And if you want to go back here all the way to beginning of like 2024, which is like about a year ago, right? And then you look at MicroStrategy comparatively to these other stocks here, and you bring it up to present day of 2025, and you look at, I can try and zoom in here for you. And you look at this, and you got MicroStrategy 382. You got NVIDIA 91%. You got Bitcoin 86%. You got Tesla 77%. You got Meta 55%. You got Amazon 34%. You got Apple 34%. You got Alphabet 31%. NASDAQ 25%. S&P 500 22%. Okay, so MicroStrategy outperforms the S&P 500 from February last year to February this year by 19x, right? Bitcoin outperforms the S&P 500 by a 4x, and Bitcoin and NVIDIA are kind of neck and neck. Tesla's kind of, catching up on a 77% return. But it's interesting to look at this, right? So what do you think is going to happen with MicroStrategy this year? It's taking a look at what will it do if they keep adding Bitcoin to their balance sheet, which we know they're going to. I'm sure Saylor's going to do something again this Monday, or over the weekend, I should say. So we'll probably announce the buy on Tuesday, I guess. And then they keep adding to their Bitcoin to their balance sheet. And, could they go up 382% again this year? Who knows? Maybe, we'll see what happens. All right. So what happens if Bitcoin goes to 200K? What happens if Bitcoin goes to 150K? You can kind of look at it, but you got to look at what the NAV premium does, because that's actually really important, which is why I was showing that graph before, because if the NAV premium goes way up, then obviously MicroStrategy goes up at a higher price comparatively to Bitcoin. It goes up by a much larger factor. So anyway, to me, MicroStrategy is the most interesting game in town right now. It has been for me. I mean, this is when I got back in. So I'm showing you this graph. I got back in 2024 in February, and I started allocating large MicroStrategy positions. And then I just got some new money in, pretty large amount of new money in. And so I just allocated 40% of that into MicroStrategy over the last 2 days. Because now I am gearing up for 2025 of what I think is going to happen in 2025. So, and what I think is going to happen in 2025 is I think we're going to see an increase for sure. And so we know that the price has been chopping. I don't know what's going to happen next week. I don't know what's going to happen the week after, but I still remain bullish in 2025. And I still think we're going to see MicroStrategy. I think the NAV premium is going to go over 2 in 2025. and I think we're going to see a boom, and that sounds really good. Peter's saying, should I sell when the MNAV is 4? I don't know when anybody should sell on this. You kind of got to have your own numbers on it, right? Because and I don't want to give any advice on that. I can just tell you personally what I'm looking at. I got into MicroStrategy in February of 2024, so I got in 1 year ago. I've been following the stock since 2020. In fact, I bought my first shares in 2020, and I allocated pretty much all my MicroStrategy that I have was pretty much bought in 2024, and then I just bought more in the last 2 days. But my positions are way up, so I'm not really looking at when to sell out based on the NAV premium. I'm looking at when to sell out based on when I hit my targets. Currently, right now, as I'm looking at allocating new money, I was just doing this, and I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to do yet, but I just dumped a whole bunch into MicroStrategy in the last 2 days. I still think it's a buy, even at 337. I bought in at 321, 326, and a whole bunch of 337 today. And I don't know what's going to happen with the charts. What I was looking at today, because I was late to the game today. So when I was looking at the charts today, and I was looking at the 10-minute chart here, there was a top coming in. It looked right at 342. So when I saw it at the 342 price point, I was like, I don't want to buy there. I think it's going to drop down. And so I started picking some up here. And I was telling my friend today, I was like, I think there's going to be a sell-off before the end of the day, because we saw MicroStrategy hit like 343 and change today. So I was like, I think there's going to be a sell-off at the end of the day, the last few minutes. So I waited and scooped a bunch up at 337, 338. And then I bought in the other day right down here around 321, around 325, etc. So I look at these charts to make some of my decisions. And I made, I would have probably bought in at the top today, just because I wanted to get my positions in. And really, what I would love to put the largest allocation in at 321, like I bought yesterday, yes, but I didn't, because I didn't have all my money in my account. I was transferring it from a trust. And so once it all arrived, I was like, great, now I'm going to allocate it. And who knows what's going to happen Tuesday. So Tuesday we could open higher, we could open lower. So I have some dry powder ready to dump more into MicroStrategy on Tuesday morning as well. And then I have the rest of my bag, and I'm going to be looking at what I do with that. Some of it may go into Tesla, and then I'm deciding whether the other portion is going to go into Bitcoin, how much into Bitcoin, and then I'm going to put some into MSTU. So if MSTU is another stock that I trade, which is a 2x of MicroStrategy, I'm not sure if this is showing as I change the screen here. It should. So it's a 2x of MicroStrategy, and so if its price point trades at $9.19 right now, if it drops down in the 8s, like below 8.5 or something, it's at 9.19 right now. I'll probably dump some into MSTU, which is a highly leveraged 2x version of MicroStrategy, which is super, super risky. But from a trading perspective, I'll probably dump some in. So that's my basic game plan. So with my allocation of new money, the great majority is going into MicroStrategy. I would say that if I do the math on it, 60% allocation to MicroStrategy. Then I will do a portion into Tesla, maybe, because Tesla is low right now. It's 355. And then I will do a portion into probably Bitcoin. And then I will do a portion into MSTU. And I will be trading that. Some of this is my trading account. So I'll be trading some of this in and out of MSTU over the next couple months. Because MSTU, when it booms, it does 2x MicroStrategy. So if MicroStrategy does a 2x of Bitcoin, then MSTU sometimes can do a 2x of MSTR. So MSTU has been known to do sometimes a 3x of Bitcoin. So that's what I mess around with some trading money. Some of my allocations go to MSTU for a little bit of a rocket ride, and that's what I'm doing. But I am heavily looking at these charts I just showed you. I mean, that's how I'm making my long-term decisions of like, what could MicroStrategy get to? And the way that I'm looking at it is based on the graph I just showed you. If the MNAV gets over 2 and Bitcoin hits 120,000 this year, I mean, I just showed you the price points of what it could be. We're sitting pretty from where we're at right now. And that's if Bitcoin goes to 120. Bitcoin goes higher, and the MNAV for MicroStrategy goes to 2 or 2.2. I mean, we're booming. So I am putting my money where my mouth is. I've been talking about being bullish about MicroStrategy all year. Again, full disclosure, my largest allocations and my largest amount was purchased early in 2024. So I am up heavily in profits on MicroStrategy. But it doesn't mean that I don't believe now that I'm going to put new money in, because I just did it today. And so I'm going to ride this out for 2025 and then take some profits. All right. So I'll let you know. I'm just going to keep you up to date on what I'm doing. It doesn't mean it's right. Buying it 337. I mean, that's the top of where MicroStrategy's been in a while. I don't know if it was the smartest move short term, but based on what I'm showing you with the graph that I just showed, I'm showing you how MicroStrategy could get to 4, how it could get to 470, how it could get to 570 in the graph. So it's not going to take a lot, I don't think, for it to get there in 2025. So to me, 337 was a buy today. It was a buy at 321 yesterday. It was a buy at 326 yesterday. It was a buy at 324 yesterday. And we'll see what it opens up at on Tuesday. I think the toughest thing, and I run into it too, is okay, I'm waiting for this thing. I'm waiting for the right price. I'm waiting for the right price to put it. I'm waiting. And at the end of the day, for me, I could be waiting forever. I'd be sitting here going, I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait to put the money in. And all of a sudden I could wake up Tuesday and now we're at 360. Or I could wake up Tuesday and we're down to 320 again. But the point is, whether it's 320, whether I buy in at 337, like I did today and yesterday, I believe in 2025, we are going to see those price points that I was just showing in the graph. If you're just joining us, I'm going to show you the price points here. Okay, this is basically, so this is MicroStrategy's performance. If you look at from 216 last year, 2024, to 214 this year, 2025, 382%. Okay. And if you look at NVIDIA's 91%, Bitcoin's 86%. So clearly the superior asset last year was MicroStrategy. It wasn't even a comparison. So even if it just does a fraction, even if it does half that this year, okay, even if it does 180%, it's still phenomenal. Even if it does 100%, it's still a huge win from where it's at today, right? So that's as of today, 2/14, 2025. It's up 382% over the last, from 216 last year to 214 this year. It's 382%. Those are insane numbers. So I'm looking at this year. I'm like, I just don't see, with more and more good news. I just shared Abu Dhabi's got their sovereign wealth fund of 534 million or whatever the amount was. GameStop is stacking into their Bitcoin reserves. More and more states are getting approvals or going through the approval process. The indicators look good. And yeah, the ETFs are draining money over the last 3 days that were flowing out of the ETFs. But we just had inflows today that were positive. And I just feel like something's about to pop. And not to mention that February, historically for Bitcoin, is always one of the top months. So February should be a good month. And obviously it has not been so far. But we've got another 14 days left. Okay. So we'll see what happens. But I'm looking at these decisions of 382 last year. And I'm looking at this. Okay, MicroStrategy, that's what it did. So it's best to zoom out when we're sitting here and we're looking at 2-3 months. It's not moving. It's not moving. It's frustrating. It's this. So yeah, I'm waiting to get some damn money like I just did an ape in, which I did. Okay, now I got my positions in. All right. So I'm making decisions on these positions based on look at the last year. Not just 2-3 months, but the last year. And now we're looking at another year in 2025. What could happen? So you zoom out, you look at what did happen, and then you zoom back in and you look at what could happen. And when you look at the NAV premium, which is kind of the lowest it's been in a while at 1.87 here. Let me change the Bitcoin number down here. Change it back to this. Whatever. I'm kind of messing with this, so my numbers are going to be off. But But anyway, so if you look at today's price with Bitcoin at $97,000, right? And MicroStrategy price 337, you look at the NAV premium is 1.87. So if Bitcoin price keeps going up, you know, MicroStrategy, look at what happens to it. Okay, and then if I put this max price up a little bit more on Bitcoin here, so we can see it on the graph. So you look at the NAV premium here. If Bitcoin goes to 120 and the NAV premium of MicroStrategy stays the same, you could be looking at a 415 MicroStrategy price. All right. So that's if the NAV premium stays the same. And then if the NAV premium goes up to 2.09, you're looking at $465 MicroStrategy price. And if the NAV premium goes to 2.65 with Bitcoin at 120, we could be looking at a 584. Now, these are just projections. These are just numbers, but it's just playing around with the NAV premium. And we know that last year the NAV premium was at 2.5. It was at 2.6. It was over 3. It was at 2. And now it's at 1.87. So this is really where MicroStrategy is up. If you want to look at present day, right now, present moment, that's what the scene looks like. Bitcoin around 97,500. You've got the NAV premium 1.87. You got the MicroStrategy price 337. Okay. So, you know, if you're looking at last year's results, like MicroStrategy at 337, you know, we get to a 120 Bitcoin price, which is 20% up, right? And MicroStrategy could be at 412. That's a 25% increase or so from here, if the NAV premium stays the same. But like, look at the S&P last year. Look at this. I mean, look at the S&P returns. You get 22% over the year. You know, so you know, that MicroStrategy going to 412 is like going from 330 to 412 is like what? It's another 20. What's that? 20. It's like 22, 24%. It's like 24% or something. So could we get to a 412? Yeah, I mean that's 24%. It's not a lot for MicroStrategy to go up in 2025. Could we get to a 500? That would be what? 40. 500 would be about 50% gain. Actually be more. So yeah, it'd be about a 50% gain. So do you think we'll get a 50% gain? Yeah, that's a $500 MicroStrategy. Do you think MicroStrategy will do 100%? So like, what do you think what's your low ball for Bitcoin? And this is for you to make your own decision on it, but what's your low ball for Bitcoin in 2025? My low ball for Bitcoin is 150,000 in 2025. So at that, I think we're going to get a double with MicroStrategy. I think if Bitcoin goes to 150, MicroStrategy will double. So that would mean we got a 660 MicroStrategy or 680 MicroStrategy, right? So looking at that from decisions now of like, if I'm looking at my 2025 with new money decisions, what I'm looking at heavily right now and discerning like, when do I buy in? But it's like, okay, I could buy in at 325, MicroStrategy 337. I could buy in 345 if it goes to that next week. If I'm looking at the range of what I actually believe it's going to go to, and I look at the history of what it did last year, I look at the plan of all the things that are happening with Bitcoin and how MicroStrategy follows Bitcoin, and I look at the NAV premium, I feel like I feel like I'm making a safe bet by getting in at 330 or 340. And could we drop down to 280? Yeah, but that's what? That's a 20% drop. It's a 20% drop. Could MicroStrategy go down to 280? Yeah, it's a 20% drop. So you look at your portfolio and go, great. So if I just jumped in this much money and am I willing to allow it to go down 20% and drop down to 280? Yeah. Am I willing to take that risk? Yes. Okay, great. So what happens if it goes to 500? What happens if it goes to 600? That's how I'm thinking through it. All right. So you think through how you want to think it, but my new money allocation so far, 60% of my new money that I just brought in, 60% allocated to, 60, was it 60%? Yeah, 60% allocated to, sorry, hold on. So far, I've allocated 50% to MicroStrategy, and then I'll allocate the rest on this week to get to a 60% MicroStrategy allocation. And then the rest is a toss-up between Bitcoin, Tesla, and MSTU. There's going to be a mix of those bags with the rest. And I'll just look at the price points next week, and I'll make my decisions. All right? Okay? So hope it serves you. And happy Valentine's Day, and it's fun game, right? Fun game to look at the metrics, fun game to look at the graphs, but I like to zoom out, look at the numbers, right? Look at what you think is going to happen and make your own decisions based on what you believe and based on what your certainty is and based on nobody else's. Not financial advice, not legal advice, not tax advice. You need to get it yourself, know it yourself, make your decisions based on your knowing. And for me personally, it's like hesitating to actually buy is not my game. I'm like, when I make a decision and I know, I'm in. Okay. So that's what happened the last 2 days. Market opens up next week. Look at it again. I'm in. Okay. All right. Hope it serves you. Have a great rest of the day and night. And I will see you all on the flip side. Stay well.